Hey guys, per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only, is not intended as financial advice. So I haven't done a 4-hour follow through in a while. Let's check that out. We'll do top 5 with BTC ratios and USD ratios. That way I can hopefully please all the people who are interested in both. There are merits for looking at both. I always prefer the BTC ratios as long as BTC is in an uptrend. Not only that, but you should prefer BTC if you want to accumulate more BTC, which is my case. I think it's going to a bajillion million eventually, so I don't really care what the trend is currently, but I know it's bullish, so that helps the bias even more. Another thing to look at, this Bitcoin dominance is below 50%. Clutch your pearls. I think it's garbage useless metric anyway. But you can just add a fork and it'll go down. You can add a bunch of stuff, it'll go down. You can have IOTA on here without a working blockchain, it'll go down. So there's really almost no relevance to me to look at this, but total current market cap back above 500 billion. Let's get to some charts. General premise is 4-hour is the best time frame for me personally to look at charts, or anyone else. That's why I talk about it specifically. I look at a bunch of things not on the screen right now. You can watch the other 4-hour follow-through videos for the list, but I'll go through a lot of that. So here's Bitcoin, and I know it's busy, so let's break it down. First thing I'm always looking at is what happens after a down move. Do we get a double bottom? Do we get a bear flag? Do we get a channel? What's going on? So immediately what you can see, hopefully, is that we have a bottom, we have a top. We're in a range right now. Is there any pattern forming of any kind? Yes. It's either an Adam-Eve or an Adam-Adam. An atom is always a very sharp V. Think of it as a male versus female, just a gentle U versus a harsh V. I don't care what you call it. That doesn't matter to me. Call it whatever you want. So it's a double bottom, period. You're going to see a W, most likely. It'll probably pull up to this 15.3 area again, and then make a decision from there. It can easily fake us all out and just keep ranging, and it'll be a higher time frame bear flag, and then break down to like 8K. I don't think that's where we're going, but some people do. The target for this specific move is the measured move with the 1618 fib, so somewhere between 16.9, 17.8, something like that. Again, these are super rough estimates on these measured moves. They tend to work out more often than not. Don't ask me why, but they just do. And you can see here another thing I mentioned, when you see these double bottoms, you typically get the second bottom on basically the candle bodies of the first bottom. You rarely see extreme emotional wicks going down twice like this on any double bottom that I've seen recently in Bitcoin. We have the Adam-Eve double bottom, then we have this is a 4-hour pitchfork double bottom on a pitchfork diag. Starting to look even more legit. We're probably going to pull back up to this median line. You can see it's a diagonal, it's not a flat line like the Adam-Eve resistance zone. So we can easily pull up to this median line, consolidate within that zone for a while. Now it'd be a different story if we were breaking below into this diagonal. You know, we would be deep dive down here. That's not what's happening right now based on what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is a retest of the median line coming soon. So here's cloud with EMAs, and what I'm seeing here specifically with the cloud is a potential for a Kumo breakout. This can happen early, it can happen late, but more likely than not it's going to happen a few candles around this zone where support resistance is 0. What you'll see is a Kumo breakout first, and then you'll see the TK lines cross the red and the blue, and then the cloud will cross somewhere within that time frame, and it'll be a retest of highs, and then hopefully continuation. Not always, but certainly possible. It's a continuation. Another thing I'm looking at is RSI. On its own, it doesn't tell me much. That's why I have to break it down with this chart where things get a little busier. But I'm always looking at the 50 of any oscillator. The 50 just says it's consolidated, it's retested some zone, it's back to essentially 0 momentum. It's back to not bull, not bear, just in the middle of the road. It could go either way with the help of the cloud and EMAs or EMAs. I don't usually use EMAs, honestly. I usually just use the cloud. But with one or the other or both, you can tell what it's going to be with the oscillator. So if we retest the oscillator as we retest the Kijun, you're leaning bullish anyway. You're likely going to go up. Same thing happens here. Retest, you're likely going to go up. It doesn't always happen. We had a failed retest here, very clearly. Bullish or bearish TK cross, with a failed retest. So you have to assume we're going to go lower. And or it's going to retest this 50 again before going higher. You can see we went lower. We had an edge to edge. We got the Adam Eve. We're getting this triangle thing that with cloud says it's bearish because it's below the cloud. Now, if I don't know about high time frames, that this thing is in a giant bullish momentum since 2015, couple years now. 4 hour in a vacuum says this probably goes lower, especially if it gets rejected in this zone. And again, you're thinking of these bounces just like you're thinking of these bounces here. It's going to bounce up, it's bullish. If it bounces down, it's bearish. If it fails here, it's bearish. If you get just a multiple failure picture, it's going to fail this. If it doesn't break through here, that's what you'd be looking for lower lows. People like Noah Gratz. I've seen a lot of calls for 8K. I don't think we're going to get it, but I've seen it. Now, the other thing you're watching for is volume. You're going to see volume. This is the best example of descending volume profile, but it's fine enough. You're going to see this pop up a little bit outside of the local range, just to sort of confirm we're going in one direction or the other. This will probably happen with a Kumo breakout, which is just a price close above the cloud. So you can see, although this looks super bearish, and the chart is definitely leaning bearish, if it wasn't for high time frames, I think this certainly goes lower. And what I'd be looking for if it goes lower is a bull div, which would be a lower low on less momentum. And then from there, I'd definitely expect a retest of highs, return to 15 minimum, likely 18 plus on that. Here's the live version of this chart. You can just see as I'm making all these charts and talking about stuff, we're breaking up back to that resistance zone. So I doubt we just bust through that. We'll probably consolidate to some degree. Let's check Ethereum. Much of the same applies. You're getting Adam Eve, W bottom, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't necessarily draw a harmonic here, but you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. And then it pulls back. It's not a huge payoff here, so I don't even think it's worth it. Overall, it's looking relatively bottomy. You can see the previous zone as well is within that range. That's just bare bones. Then if we look at the cloud chart, you can see we're having essentially descending volume. I always just exclude outliers like this wick. You don't have to. You can call me crazy for doing it, but I'm going to do it every time. Just exclude the crap that is clearly emotional, selling and or poor liquidity and or Coinbase book shutting off, just weird stuff like that. This is on the index, so it's more real than not real, but I'm going to exclude it anyway. And another thing I'm showing here is a bull div. This is long since passed, but you can see we had a lower low barely with a higher momentum, saying there was less momentum pushing this down despite a lower low, so that's a bullish divergence, and that propelled this higher. And again, you're looking at this 50 on the oscillator. If you're using oscillators, I don't know honestly how most people use oscillators, so I couldn't really speak to this for everybody. Another thing I'm seeing here is, again, there was a bear div here, higher highs, lower lows, or lower highs on RSI, lower highs on volume on this higher high as well, so that was all super bearish in hindsight. Cloud itself has been bullish this whole time. Price essentially hasn't even been below the cloud except for this point here. So this is all super bullish continuation. Regardless, what you'd be watching for here is a head and shoulders, which I'm showing with these sloppy looking arrows, again on descending volume. You're waiting for a smash down at the shoulder here or a retest of highs. Anything essentially above this level, it would be a stop for the head and shoulders trade. You can see you had some pretty clean shoulders here, and it got rejected and broke up, so it's probably pretty safe to say at this point that pattern is no more. As far as cloud is concerned specifically, price above cloud, cloud's bullish. TK cross will be crossing bullish shortly. You're pretty much waiting for the lagging span here, which is something not many people use, but I like to use it when it's in this range, similar to here. You had a cross here, but lagging span wasn't necessarily above price. and it pulled back and went up again first before you got a cleaner signal. So don't ever discount the lagging span just because it's kind of there and people ignore it and don't really look at it or know what to do with it. But it is part of the checklist. It's the fourth item. You know, there's nothing wrong with adding a little bit and then waiting until you get a clear signal with the lagging span to add more, or to the point where you're comfortable with your position at that size. So overall, this looks great. And if we check some old pitchforks, you can see that the ascending triangle kind of messed with these pitchforks pretty heavily, because with the extended consolidation, you're going to be busting out of pitchforks all day. You know, it's literally sideways, so you're not going to be going up in a diagonal. This old pitchfork is still here. You can see we're kind of flirting with that zone. I'm not too confident in the second pitchfork even being a thing, but I'm putting it on here just in case. But you can see, again, we double tested this. Support becomes resistance, resistance becomes support on this ascending triangle. Went higher, it went to the target 839 or whatever it was, and it's just chilling right now. This could easily keep going. I don't really know how I feel about it on without the cloud, but the cloud certainly wants it to keep going. Let's move to the ETH BTC pair. So I actually started to look at this on the 12-hour, and I was thinking, wow, this looks really good. So the cloud alone tells me this looks really good. I'm almost never going to show you any higher time frames on the 4-hour follow-through videos, only because I did this wrong. I'm going to show this to you, but you should always be looking at all the time frames anyway. For ETH BTC specifically, it looks better on higher time frames. Things move a little slower. But cloud alone, you can see we got flirtations of a uptrend with this descending triangle, which had already had a bearish bias. We never got the Kuma breakout here. We got the Kuma breakout here this time with the bullish cloud. You can see another failure here to break resistance. Always interesting when it hits that exactly, in this case twice. You know, this was an edge to edge. Overall, it looks bearish, but breaking the chains, the shackles, the manacles of bearishness, if you will. Again, a sloppy pitchfork, if you want to call it that. Just taking a range, seeing where it's at. You can see it's above the most extreme of the pitchfork. And whenever you're adding wings on this pitchfork, I usually don't add anything above 1.5, but 1.272 usually a popular one, just because it's a fib. In this case, I think it's a 1.5. But in any event, it's clearly above that. It's broken a few candles now. So it's definitely leaning bullish. This is the 12-hour again. You can see here's the descending triangle, which we were talking about at the time. That broke down. We were most of us, I think, were pretty certain that was going to break down, except for the ETH maximalists. Here we're seeing some sort of weird diamond thing. I don't even know if this is relevant, but it looks, you get like this extended range on tops or bottoms. It's usually a bottom, and it usually is a reversal signal in this case, or it would be a reversal signal for down, and if it was up here. Another interesting thing, the cloud told you to get out on the 12-hour on 7-9, and the 12-hour cross was on 8-13. So you can see all this, just range, broke down, whatever. The obvious target's going to be this support resistance zone somewhere below, 0.65, something like that. That's where we're headed. You can see it's breaking the 200 as well, so the things it's breaking here are adding up. Finally, we're here to the 4-hour. 4-hour crosses broke way early, probably 7-8, July 8th. And you can see we have this extended consolidation zone, multiple failures of crosses, broke down. That's another signal. And you just get attempt after attempt and nothing happens. And you'll see that on the cloud too. Attempts for Kuma breakouts. And then it may go finally on the fourth or fifth time, but usually if it looks like this, it's going to be continuation, which was the case. And again, you're seeing a 5,200 bullish cross with price well above 50, well above 200 for the first time. It tried here, it wasn't ready. It just wasn't ready. But finally, it's breaking above here. So it looks good for continuation, like I said, somewhere around 0.65, something like that. Let's move on to nobody's favorite, Bcash. Not much to say here. This kind of looks like any alt did mid-March 2016, late March, maybe a few months out from March 2016, just because we had this 5,200 cross in March on most alts, and then it tested the 200 a few times, kept going up a little bit. This could be a flag. Cloud says it's good to go up further, and I'm just adding this resistance zone. So it could do one of these extended consolidations and then test this diag. I don't know. I don't think the cloud is too relevant here for this. The EMAs are probably more relevant in this case. BTC, you can see it had a definite range down here, buy zone for sure, and it hit that again, sprang up, and again forming a flag. Cloud says it's good to go. I'd expect the ceiling at the moment to be somewhere around 0.3. Seeing it above 0.3 would be interesting for many reasons, but I don't think that's in the cards at the moment. I think it'll test 0.3 first before it just goes insanity, if it does ever. But the cloud says it's okay. 4 hour 5200 says it's okay. Overall, it's pretty young, doesn't have much data. You're going to need to look at this on lower time frames anyway, just because, you know, it didn't exist until August 2017. So this year, you know, it's only 4 months old, something like that. It's a baby, so it doesn't have much data. So anything could really happen here. It could just stay in the range, which is pretty much what I expect, just to bounce around for a while. Let's go to Ripple. So I like Ripple on the BTC pair. I've noticed a lot of FX traders trading it on the USD pair. I've noticed a lot of just normal people looking at the USD pair, which is fine. Again, this looks good. There's no pitchfork or anything on this, but 5200 says it's good to go. Cloud says it's good to go. Above cloud, TK cross, bullish. We had some Kijun tests. We had a 200 test. That's some crazy dump to 40 cents or something like that from $1. That's insane. So this kind of looks like LTC did a few months ago. We're just kind of like meandering up-ish above the cloud. No real sense of direction. Just a slow slide up. Pitchforks don't really fit any of this either. If we look at, let's see, here it is. The Ripple BTC. I'm looking at this wick. Oh, hey, we're here. So we're currently at a support resist zone with a flag forming. You expect this to break higher. I certainly expect it to go higher throughout 2018. I'm going to hold this beyond 10K even. I've been in it since 4 or less. I didn't get in down here. There's an Adam Eve down here, really nice Adam Eve. You can see the Eve came on the higher low. So whenever you're playing these double bottoms, it's always best to, if you want to be super ballsy, you're playing the second bottom. You have bids smack around the second bottom. And that's what you're doing. You can see how many times you get wrecked trying to do that. So I don't personally do that, but there is a rhyme and reason for that to occur, certainly. But anyway, you know, it's back in this zone that it hasn't seen since July. So there's going to be plenty of resistance. I certainly expect it to go higher, just based on fundamentals that I'm not even going to talk about. Mainly just on-ramping that's coming. So here's zoomed in on that same spot. I'm seeing a few things. First being this flag. Very clean. That's the other thing about Ripple, why I think the FX people like it. The USD pair has really clean signals. High time frame, low time frame signals. I mean, you can see how great this pennant looks. So the target's somewhere around 10K. 10.35, something like that. The measured move is up there. The 1618 is up there. If you do some crazy diag thing, you know, if you ignore this, if you say, if I'm allowed to say I'm ignoring stupid wicks like this, I should be allowed to say I'm ignoring stupid wicks like this, and just use this lower one. You can see it's well within that range of diagonal resistance. There isn't necessarily a pitchfork on this. 5200 says it's good to go. There hasn't really been a Kijun retest yet, so that's not out of the cards. You know, somewhere below 6K sats just to retest and then go higher. That's also possible. You're seeing a general decline in volume here, so there's definitely a bear div that sort of reset itself. And the other thing I'm expecting is a 3-drive thing to where we get, whenever you have 2 drives, just expect a third. So you can see we hit this 1.618 on the second drive, probably going to get that on the third drive. This is the resistance zone for the 3 drives. It's always between the 1 and 1.272, so 13K sats. If you're trying to short this or get out, until it cleanly breaks this zone, the pattern is predicting 6K, essentially, 50% retrace. And if that happens, if we get a new high on lower volume, you have to expect that. You know, if this thing just like slides up on no volume, it's going to come down pretty hard. That's generally the case for these 3 drives. But overall, bullish all around. You know, it broke back in December 12th, Kumo breakout. So you weren't long, you know, at any point that was a great point to get in. Let's move on to LTC USD. So I talked a little bit about this in my latest article for Brave New Coin. I don't think it was the most recent, but one of the most recent. How it was just like way overbought. No basis whatsoever for being up here technically. And it pulled back pretty hard. And this is a pitchfork, an old pitchfork. Fits pretty well. You can see this isn't 1.5. This is probably 1.272. All I'm doing when I'm looking at these is I'm looking at where this fits. Anything above that here is going to be way overbought. As it is, this is the overbought, oversold zones. So overbought, oversold. You know, if it's below that, you're thinking, you know, that's a strong signal for buy or sell. The other thing here, there was a massive bear div here. So it pulled back, hit the median line. Similar to the Kijun, you might always think it's crazy. In this case, it was, you know, it was at above 400 and then tested like 180 on the median line. You know, it went lower, but that's just Coinbase being Coinbase. But, you know, if you want some cheeky bids somewhere, or if you want some super low risk, high reward sort of stuff, always shoot for the mean reversion. So Kijun bounce, median line retest, you know, even though it looks crazy, but it was oversold, so it overbought. So it's crazy as it always looks. You always have to be thinking mean reversion's coming sooner rather than later. Here's Cloud with 5,200. Not much to say. Again, descending volume, sort of ranging in a zone. If you ignore these wicks here, Coinbase being Coinbase, order books being thin. Cloud overall looks good to go for a retest of 420. Just based on bullish Cloud, price is shortly going to be above Cloud. It's going to be above the 50. TK's already bullish. You're waiting, if anything, on this lagging span to be above Cloud, above price. So if you get a breakout with lagging span up here, you immediately are thinking all-time high retest, watching it there, holding, and expecting it to go higher. That's what I'd be expecting anyway. LTC BTC looks super clean on this ascending triangle. Oh man, does this look good. Which means it's probably going to break down, but it really looks good. Descending volume, RSIs, whatever, don't care. All of this is super clean in this range. Expected targets above 0.3. Local highs somewhere around 2.1, 2.2, just if you zoom out on this. So anything above that's definitely good to go. You know, these aren't levels that... These are levels that weren't seen since the inception of the pair. So, you know, if it gets to this and keeps going, then that's all-time high in the pair relationship. So that's pretty interesting. But this looks clean as it is. Whenever I see ascending triangles or descending triangles or any sort of triangle, and I think it's been sideways for a while, I turn on B-bands. B-bands are showing bearish breakdown. Currently, it's attempted to 3 times, got held up. It looks pretty bullish. If you're not in, you might want to wait. I'm holding right now, so it's whatever. But that looks really good. And then Cloud also looks really good. If it does retrace, it's going to go back to this 125-ish zone, and it kind of wants to just based on the size of that Cloud, the distance here, and the length of this 50% retrace. So your exit's going to be somewhere below the Kijun into the Cloud. You're going to get this edge-to-edge business. That's certainly possible. But in a vacuum, this ascending triangle looks beautiful. It's been basically the month of December. Really clean. It's flirting with local high, all-time high. You know, it looks good. It looks good. I'm in LTC, so there's clearly a bias there, but this is certainly fine too. Testing that edge-to-edge flat Kumo equals magnet thingamajig. That's all I got for today. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe. Hit me up on Twitter, Telegram. General idea with these is I do them a couple a week. That way we can follow the 4 hours on all these and see if I'm right or wrong on any of this stuff. Happy trading.